Good evening. I'd like to call the South San Antonio Independent School District Special Call Meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, December the 20th, 2017, and the time is 6 p.m. Mrs. Martinez, could you please call roll call?
Mrs. Angelina Ostiguin,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.,
Here.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra,
Here.
Mrs. Connie Prado,
Here.
Mrs. Elda Flores, present.
Okay, this segment is going to be the public hearing. The public hearing to discuss South San Antonio Independent School District 2017 school first rating and the financial management report. Dr. Saavedra.
Thank you, Mr. Ostiguin. I'm going to call on J.C. Zamora, our Chief Financial Officer, and he will present this annual report. J.C.
Good evening, members of the board, Madam Chair, Dr. Saavedra. Tonight we'll be presenting the 2016-17 Financial Integrity Rating Systems Report. Just to ensure that this is data that is from our fiscal year 2015-16. The primary goal of the school first is to improve the management of school district's financial resources. The district's rating is based upon an analysis of staff and student data reported for the 2015-16 school year and budgetary and actual financial data for the fiscal year ended August 31st, 2016. The information presented will show you 2 years. It will show you the 2015-16 information, and then a comparison to the current first report that we're reporting on, which is 2016-17. As you can see, the district passed in both years. In 2015-16, the district had a rating of superior with a district score of 78. In 2015-16, a superior score required a scoring of 70 through 100. For the current year being reported, the district received a B, which is above standard. The district did increase its score by 10 points for a score of 88. In 2016-17, the state increased the requirements to achieve a superior rating from a 70 to 100 to a 90 to 100. And then the above standard scoring was moved to an 80 to 89. The first indicator that's measured is a yes or no, and the question was the complete annual financial report and data submitted to TA within 30 days of the November 27th or January 28th deadline, depending on the school district's fiscal year and date of June 30th or August 31st, respectively. Our response is a yes for both years. Indicator 2. Was there an unmodified opinion in the annual financial report on the financial statements as a whole? Again, we received yeses for both years. For indicator 2B, did the external independent auditor report that the AFR was free of any instances of material weaknesses in internal controls over financial reporting and compliance for local, state, or federal funds? Again, the district received yeses in both years. Indicator 3. Was the school district in compliance with the payment terms of all debt agreements at fiscal year end? Again, the district received yeses for both years. Indicator 4. Did the school district make timely payments to the teacher retirement system, Texas Workforce Commission, Internal Revenue Service, and other government agencies? The district received yeses in both years. Indicator 5, was the total unrestricted net position balance in the governmental activities column in the statement of net position greater than 0? Again, the district received yeses for both years. Indicator 6, was the number of days of cash on hand and current investments in the general fund for the school district sufficient to cover operating expenditures, excluding facility acquisition or construction? We received yeses for both years. measure of current assets to current liability ratios for the school district sufficient to cover short-term debt. This indicator the district received 4s in both years. Was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the school district sufficient to support long-term solvency? The district received 6s for both years. Did the school district's general fund revenues equal or exceed expenditures? The district received 10s for both years. Was the debt service coverage ratio sufficient to meet the required debt service? The district received 10s for both years. Was the school district administrative cost ratio equal to or less than the threshold ratio? The district received 8s in both years. Did the school district not have a 15% decline in student to staff ratio over 3 years? The district received 10 points for this area in both years. Did the comparison of public education information management system, which is also known as PINS, data to like information in the school district's AFR, the annual financial report, result in a total variance of less than 3% of all expenditures by function? The district received 10 points for each year. Did the external independent auditor indicate the AFR was free of any instances of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, or federal funds? This indicator in 15-16 had received a 0, in 16-17 he did get full points of 10. Did the school district not receive an adjusted payment schedule for more than one fiscal year or an over-allocation of foundation school program funding as a result of a financial hardship? The school district received 10 points in both years. This next page is the report we're required to do, the reimbursement received by the superintendent and board members for the 15-16 school year. In this report, we indicate the different reimbursements that were paid to each person. It includes meals, lodging, transportation, any motor fuel, and the other is things that we may pay on behalf of the members, like hotspots or memberships to different organizations. We are also required to report any gifts received by the superintendent or board members, and we'll report. And then we are required to report if the superintendent receives any outside compensation for services provided. And in this year, the superintendent received $25,156. We're also required to report any business transactions between the school district and board members. For the 15-16 year, we had $805 paid to Ms. Muskie for services rendered. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Board members, the floor is open. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Mrs. Prado?
Thank you. Let me set myself. Okay, I just want to make a comment on Dr. Svedon indicator number 11, which is the cost ratio. It looks like it stayed the same. We were at 8 points at 15, 16, and 16, 17. I noticed that you did list the amount, which was 11.63 for 2016. What was the ratio for this year? Do we know?
For the 16-17?
For 16, 17.
But we don't have that yet.
You don't have the data. Okay. Obviously, it must Since our scores didn't go up, they stayed the same, so it must not have been much of a difference.
No, so the comparison, if we're talking about the actual report, the comparison was between 15-16 and 16, the 14-15 data and the 15-16 data. If you want that comparison, the 14-15 data was 0.1159, so it increased by 0.004.
So it was minimal.
Yeah, it was very close.
Okay, so all we're seeing is a very slight increase, but I guess my concern is it seems to stay at 8 for the past 2 years. It's not gone up and it's not gone down again, but we want to make sure that it doesn't continue, that the points don't drop to 6. And I should be talking to you, but I guess that's staff. That the points stay, at least go up to a 10, but not drop to a 6. So this is now the second year. I don't know what the score was for 14, 15, but we want to make sure that if we can get that 10, that's the ultimate goal. We should be scoring 100 and we're not. But that's always been my focus, is to improve that. And it looks like we're staying at 8, but I just don't want it to drop because the number has increased a little bit. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Flores?
Thank you. On indicator 7, current assets to current liabilities ratio for the school district sufficient to cover short-term debt. What is the goal of the district there? Is that a common 4? Is that common? Where are we? Is that good, bad?
So one of the things that we were able to identify during our current year audit for 16-17 was that previous administration had classified some of the workers' comp funds incorrectly. They had been classifying them as a liability. We've since made that adjustment with approval by the auditors to correct that the accounting practice. Based on that correction alone, we do foresee that for the 16-17 fiscal year that we should at least receive 8 points. And we're hopeful that maybe it even bumps it up to the full 10 points.
For the 16-17?
It would be for the financial report for 2 years from now.
18-19.
Yes,
We're hoping, our goal is to be at a 10.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? Mr. Ibarra?
On indicator 14, is it correct that we got 0 points for 15-16?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, I have a comment. It was similar to what Mrs. Flores said on indicator 7, that I'm glad that we kind of found out what was being classified wrong so that we can get our assets to be higher than our liabilities, so we can get more points. On indicator number 8, we fared to 6 both years, and I think that has to do again with long-term solvency and having the support. And so I'm hoping that we're making some changes, if any, or are we expected to see the same points in 2 years?
So first, I want to correct myself. The 16-17 data will be reported in 2018 in this time frame. So I want to correct myself first of all. For indicator 8, actually that indicator is probably the one indicator that I would say we won't have any real significant movement on it. Just because the way the formula works, we don't really have a viable way to increase our total assets significantly enough to move the needle. And on the other side, our total liabilities, which is mainly our debt portfolio, also has very limited availability to reduce it as we pay our principal off every year. It's just not significant enough to move the needle. As far as the solvency, the statement it makes as far as why the indicator's there, it's more of a commercial type of indicator that school districts are being measured against, but the difference between us and a for-profit entity, I guess you would say, is that we continue to be able to raise our taxes to pay our debt. Whereas a corporation, they can always just generate extra revenue to do the same. So, I think that as far as any concern about solvency, I wouldn't say that there is a high risk. Of course, it's always under the board direction that we're able to increase tax rates to meet our obligation for our debt. So that factor doesn't concern me as much as other factors.
So just to be clear, we are being, right now what we're reporting, is what we reported last year was the 2015-2016. So that is set in stone. That is exactly what we got. The 2016 and 17 is what we reported, but we're still waiting to hear back, which would be next year. And so we're kind of giving ourselves a grade before we get the grade. Is that what it is?
No, so the 16-17 data will be based on our final audit and what we report as our audit coming in January. So once we finalize the audit, and that means our books are finalized, that will be, of course, reported to the state.
So you don't see any of those numbers moving come January?
Not for indicator.
For any of the indicators?
Well, yes, and that's what I was saying about indicator 7, that with the correction that we've made, we should anticipate at least a score of an 8 based on early information right now.
Okay, so with that, then we will move up from a B rating to an A?
Yes, we would move up to a 9.
Oh, good. Okay, so then we would remain the same as we did last year?
Yes.
Even though that the rating was scored higher. Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Okay. So now we open the floor for citizens to be heard. Citizen comments during this meeting shall be limited to the 2017 school first rating and the financial management report. Stacy Alderete.
Good evening, members of the board and community. Thank you, Mr. Zamora, for the report. I would hope in future references that we kind of break it down so that the community understands what it is that the board's talking about, because I'm pretty sure half of the people sitting in here did not understand that. So it'd be neat to get a breakdown for the community. Good evening. My name is Stacy Alderete. I went to the Texas Education Agency website and found the final 2016-2017 financial accountability ratings. Last year, our school district received a rating of superior. This year, our rating has been lowered to above standard achievement. What is the most disturbing is the following statewide rating distribution of public school districts. Nearly 85% of all of the school districts in Texas received superior rating, and just 11% of the school districts in Texas received the above standard rating, which is the rating that we received. So my question is, why we received a lower rating this year? My other question is, has the superintendent explained to the board why we received a lower rating? More importantly, has the superintendent explained to the school board what he is going to do on those areas that need improvement? Finally, when I am not in attendance, I view the board meetings as they are being streamed live. So are we now restricting board members from asking questions about our district's finances? If so, the most important question I would ask is, ultimately, who is responsible, totally responsible for our financial rating and how we receive that rating? Would it be the superintendent? Would it be the conservator? If the board is being restricted, then why should they be held responsible? With the local FBI investigation mentioning our district, I think that it would be vital that board members are able to ask questions and have plenty of time to do so. Thank you very much and Merry Christmas.
Was there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Was there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Mrs. Prado, seconded by Mrs. Flores, and the time is 6:20. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the next meeting. Okay, welcome to the South San Antonio Independent School District regular meeting. Today's date is Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, and the time is 6:20 p.m. And Mrs. Martinez, could you take roll call, please?
Mrs. Angelina Seguin,
Present?
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr., Mrs. Leticia Guerra,
Here.
Mrs. Connie Prado,
Present.
Mrs. Emma Flores.
Present.
Okay, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge, prayer, and call to action.
Good evening. Our pledge tonight is being led by Kingsley Onyema, a fifth grader at Madela, who's the winner of our district's first ever holiday card contest. We'll have more on that recognition in a second, but first, of course, Kingsley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Now please bow your heads for a quick prayer. Lord, we're meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts, our minds, in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance tonight. Amen. And now the call to action. All
Students will enjoy successful education experiences to empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives in the future they create.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, we have some recognitions. The first one being the holiday card contest winner.
Yes, so as I was mentioning, we'd like to recognize Kingsley here, who designed the first ever student-designed official holiday card. So that's the first ever that this has ever happened, Kingsley. Now his design was selected from the 12 other campus winners, and it was selected, as you can see, because of his attention to detail and his obvious artistic talent. Now Kingsley is joined tonight by his loving family, who you can see here in the front few rows, by Madela's principal, Joanne Buchanan. And we also have this card for each of the board members after Kingsley tells us a little bit about his design.
If you look at the sleigh, on the front part of the sleigh, you can see that I put a cannon on it, and every single time that elf pushes the lever forward, it releases and launches the gifts into the air. They open up on parachutes and they come out in the chimney. And then I put Frosty the Snowman dancing with a broomstick in his hand. Of course, you need that. And I said to make the final house on the right. If you look at it, I didn't want to put that much design into all of the houses, so I made that one kind of like a silhouette a little bit. And I just used colored pencil, black colored pencil to draw it.
So no erasers.
No erasers.
Moving on to the next one, the Superstar Employee of the Month, Dr. Smith.
Right?
Yes, now our next recognition is, of course, our South San Superstar Employee of the Month for December. Now this employee went to South San schools from elementary through high school. She was a Bobcat cheerleader. Then right after graduating nursing school, she was hired as the nurse at Armstrong, where she's been the last 13 years. And her 3 children are also students at South San. Now her principal says she's an active member of this school, part of the cheer team, choir. She does all the morning announcements. And tomorrow morning you can see her on KSAT News talking about a tradition at Armstrong that has been going on for 10 years. Nurse Martinez is known for her positive attitude, and we'd like to say thank you, Nicole Martinez, our South San Superstar Employee of the Month.
The next recognition is the bilingual ESL Department Spanish Spelling Bee contest winners.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Castleberry, Board members, and Dr. Saavedra. 3 years ago, we started our district-wide Spanish Spelling Bee, and we are going strong and we're getting bigger. So we have the honor of presenting to you our 3 winners that will represent South San at the regional Spelling Bee at Region 20 in February. So they will be competing with students all over San Antonio, all the way down to Paso Uvalde. So we're really excited and proud of the students. So first, we'd like to, the first year we had our spelling bee, this young lady won the elementary. She won last year and she won this year. We noticed that she has really good strategies when she's out there spelling. So we want to congratulate Price's 5th grader for the elementary level, Ivana Corona. 3 years in a row is a winner. Ivana, congratulations. Okay, the next one, our middle school winner, has been our winner for 2 years in a row. Last year we included elementary and middle school, and our middle school winner is from Dwight Middle School, Leslie Aguilar. This year, we also included the high school. So our high school competed, and we have our champion for the high school. Our champion is an 11th grader, Tamara Sandoval. Once again, we want to congratulate our 3 winners, and we wish them the best of luck, and we want them to study hard and practice so that they can be champions at our regional contest. Thank you. Okay, in conjunction with our bilingual symposium this year, we had a competition for district-wide competition for our Hispanic heritage winners. The students could talk about, symbolize whatever they felt was important about their Hispanic heritage. They could do it with a PowerPoint, poster, any type of media they wanted. So here are our winners. For kindergarten, from Hutchins Elementary, Naomi Perez. And these are first grader. Our first grade winner from Benavides Elementary is Cassandra Flores. Our second grade district-wide winner, we have 2. They create from Hutchins Elementary, Luisa Zamora and Angel Santos.
Okay. Congratulations.
Our fourth grade winner is from Benavides Elementary, is Santiago Lopez. Santiago couldn't be with us today. So our third grade winner from Hutchins Elementary is Kayla Aguilar. Our district-wide fifth grade winner is from Price Elementary, Amy Daniela Miguel Madrid. Now moving to our middle school category, our sixth grade district-wide winner is from Shepherd Middle School, Dulce Parra Villa. Our district-wide seventh grade winner from Shepherd Middle School also is Michelle D. Hernandez Palma. Our eighth grade winners is a combo from Zamora Middle School, Carol Camino Lucio and Jose Alvarado Sanchez. With us today. From the high school, our ninth grade winner is Kayla Olivo. Kayla could not be with us either. And our 10th grade winner is from Southland High School as well, Julio Padilla. And Julio could not be with us today. We want to congratulate all our children.
You get it, all?
Yes.
Congratulations to all the winners. And board members, before we go to closed session, Dr. Saavedra, instead of superintendent remarks, he has a surprise for us. So, Dr. Saavedra.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, last week I had the pleasure of meeting a very special student in one of our schools at Benavides Elementary. I met Betsy Davila. She's a fifth grader. She's a visually impaired student that performed a solo at her school presentations last week. And I would like for Jessie to step forward. With her is her mother, Ms. Alma Davila, and also her teacher, Ms. Wispel. And so with that, Ms. Wispel, whenever you're ready. Yeah, right up in front. Wherever you're comfortable. Yeah, that would be good.
Now we're going to go into closed session. The board will return to open session and take appropriate action, if any, on items discussed in closed session. No action will be taken in closed session. Further, board members are reminded that all the items discussed in closed session must remain confidential so as to avoid liability to the district. The board will consider and discuss the following items. Closed meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Number one, discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Section 551.074. And number two, discussion regarding litigation and potential litigation involving claims covered by insurance policies issued by Texas Association of Public Schools Property and Liability Fund. The time is 6:39. Okay, the board is back from session. The time is 7:42 PM. Citizens to be heard. If I can have legal go over what the guidelines are for citizens to be heard.
Yes, Madam President. One second. Okay. Members of the public, thank you for being here and happy holidays. At a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, members of the public will have the opportunity to address the Board of Trustees during this section on any agenda item or any subject within its jurisdiction except a matter relating to pending litigation. Each speaker should sign in on the public comment sheet available at the Board of Trustee meeting. Speakers should limit their comment to 3 minutes. The Board of Trustees may, if any member deems it necessary, limit both the number of speakers and the time allotted to each speaker upon motion and second by any other member. Under the law, the Board of Trustees may only take action on items specifically listed on the agenda. Subject matter presented, which is not a part of the agenda, will be referred to the appropriate department for review and subsequent action. Therefore, the Board of Trustees may not take formal action on any requests made during the public comment period, which are not on the agenda, but can refer such requests to school staff for review if appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, the first one is Travis Shipman.
Good evening. Madam Board President, board members, Dr. Saavedra, Madam Executor. I'm here tonight to speak about the district health insurance. I know that there's a item on the agenda to renew the consultants. I understand, being a former insurance committee chairman for this district of 15 plus years, that you can't do it right, you can't do it wrong. You're kind of an unsung hero, and you're a hero to some people, and some people are really mad because the price goes up. And you just can't win. But I'm really concerned about this item because the product we got this year, we turned in a used Cadillac, and we got a Ford Pinto in return with flat tires. After being on that committee for over 15 years, several questions that I had but have never been answered is what was our loss profit ratio going into negotiations? In the time that I was on the committee, we had 150% loss profit one time and saw really ugly numbers. And what we saw this year were beyond ugly. We gave up a lot of stuff. We had out-of-pocket deductibles go up over 300%. We had prescription drug costs for myself are going to go up 200%. And after I looked at it, I thought, what in the cat hair is going on? So I went to Blue Cross Blue Shield's webpage, and I logged in as an independent person to buy a plan. And I could get a better product as an independent person off their website than we got from them this year. So I was curious, was it just them or was it the other providers out there? And I went and looked, and there were. And it was really sad to see that. We also have, I know an employee in the district that has a small business, has 10 employees. They got better rates and better plans than we did with 1,100 employees. That is really sad to say. You know, when I was on the committee, I'm a hardball person. I buy and sell cattle, thousands of dollars of cattle all the time. And you've got to be able to ask tough questions and expect tough answers. and you gotta hold people to their feet. But my next question is, we know that there are proposals for $42,000 for them to renew their contract with us next year, not exceeding. That's a large chunk of change. For $10,000, I could have wrote an RFP for you, and the committee could have done all of it and saved us a whole lot of money, not spend a dime. But that's hindsight. The next question I've got, and a really big question, is they've got the $142,000 they're getting. What percentage are they getting of the premiums? Because in the past, it's been about 1.5% on a $6.5 million plan. That runs into about $100,000 or more that they're getting on top of it, and the district employees are paying for it. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Stacy, on the record.
Good evening again. Just recently, I reviewed a posting on mysanantonio.com. So the story had to do with bullying in our public schools. It was originally posted on August 22nd, 2016. However, it was reposted last week, and I could not tell you why. I have personal knowledge about this subject, and I am concerned with the statistics that come along with this story. My daughter was bullied. Last year in February, my daughter attempted to take her life. When she was put in the hospital, we didn't know how extreme it was. She had been bullied from 7th grade all the way to last year. Times had been seen and not reported. It got to the point that she felt she no longer belonged here and ended up in a hospital almost dead. I have her permission to tell you that tonight. We now have cyberbullying going on in the schools. The TEA says that each school district is required to choose their own bullying and harassment prevention policies and procedures. I am just wondering if our policies are working. This is why I am bringing up this issue. Along with the story, they gathered statistics for school year 2014-2015. From 17 districts in San Antonio, there are close to 1,000 elementaries, middle schools, and high schools in San Antonio. The story identified the top 50 schools with bullying and harassment problems. South San, Northside, Northeast, and San Antonio ISD led other districts with these kinds of complaints. Sadly, in the top 50, 6 of our schools can be found. That's almost 1/2 of our schools. Kazin, Price, Hutchins, Kindred, Shepherd, and Matla. Remember, this is for 2014 and 2015 school year. As a parent, I sincerely pray that we are doing everything we can to stop the bullying and harassment. My daughter today is no longer my little girl. She is a child who has to be seen weekly, one time weekly, on medication, suffers from severe depression and anxiety because of what's happening behind the walls in our schools. I have reported this as a board member before, and it was dismissed. I ask that y'all seriously look into the programs that we have and put a nip in it, because it's not working, and there are many children like my daughter walking the halls. Thank you.
Juan Vicky.
Good evening, my name is Juan Vicky. Like many other parents and citizens of our school district, I have seen the video of our girls basketball player getting hurt. The video is very clear. The injury to our girl was very real. A TV report said the parents of the athlete filed a complaint or charges as assault. I know this is a personal and private issue when it comes to the student and their parents. But having been involved in athletic with my own children and relatives, this is my concern. Because of this incident, unfortunately, it has impact on all sports. Parents in athletic are wondering if something like this happens again, will the school district have our backs? I know, as I have said, that we must protect the wishes of the parents and their students. But at some point, the school district needs to send out our message to the community that we do have our athletics back. A message that says we will not let something this happen again without consequences. If we don't, I'm afraid it will hurt our entire athletic program. Thank you.
Blue Standard?
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, everybody! Merry Christmas! The citizen would like to be here today. First of all, on behalf of the police department, we'd like to say Merry Christmas to the community of South San. And we're proud to say that I'd like to thank my staff for donating providing for 60 families here at the district a gift today at the elementary. So I just wanted to share the little Christmas story. At this time, so we'll appreciate the support. Thank you.
Now it's the presentation and report. Number one, report on measures of academic progress, known as MAP. Dr. Saavedra.
And Ms. Dr. will introduce this one.
I'm going to ask our Director of Teaching and Learning to present this as was part of our board goals and progress measure. This is our first report regarding our baseline for mathematics. So, Ms. Shields.
Madam President, Dr. Sawyer, board members, Dr. Castleberry, I'm pleased to present the beginning of year data for measures of academic progress, better known as MAP, to all of us in the district. This is our first year implementing measures of academic progress for MAP, and it is giving us very specific information to provide interventions and also extensions for our students. And it is also allowing us to monitor the progress of our students as we have done in reading with iStation. This slide is a reminder of our goal that 40% of our students will be attaining the master's level of performance by the year 2022. And the table shows our yearly progress measures. So MAP is an online diagnostic assessment that identifies skills and learning standards that students are scoring on level, below level, and beyond grade level. And as I stated before, it gives us very specific information. When the teachers view the report after students have taken the test, they see a graphic like this one. It classifies students into 5 groups: low, low average, average, high average, and high. Students take the assessment 3 times yearly. So we just completed our beginning of the year assessment, and we will have our mid-year assessment at the end of February into early March, and then our end of the year assessment will be in May. MAP provides us information about the instructional level of each student and also a roadmap to help each student achieve mastery. The grades are assessed in the following areas. So essentially they take the grade level TEKS and they've organized them into 4 areas for each of the grade levels, K through 8. And then you'll see in Module 1, they've organized those TEKS into 5 areas. And these are the areas that they were tested on in the test. So one of the great things about MAP is it also predicts STAR performance levels. And so these are the current projections. The table and the graph show the current projections based on this beginning of the year assessment. You'll notice that second grade is included on this chart. So what they did was they used the third grade report scores to predict the second grade performance. I feel like this is very valuable information for our second grade teachers to use as they prepare our students for the challenges that they will face in third grade. And I know that you previously received this data, so I won't go grade level by grade level, but I would like to point out where we are at this time according to this data. And the way that the state calculates each of the performance levels. So if you look at the graph, the state would combine the yellow, the green, and the blue for the approaches level. So that would give us 66.3% of students attaining the approaches level or passing star at this point. If you look at the green and the blue combined, that would be the needs level, which is 27.1% attaining the needs level. And then if you look at the blue, that is our master's level, which currently stands at 6.3%. And so after implementing the interventions, we would expect to see these numbers increase and show student growth, and we will compare the data from the February assessment to this data. So as far as implementation of the information that we're getting from the assessments, teachers have access to a wide variety of reports, class reports, individual reports, and it also creates groups and tells them which interventions each group of students needs. And it also, like I said before, it tells you where each student is working below, on, and above grade level. And then interventions will take place between now and late February or early March when we take the assessment again. And we hope to see and expect to see growth in our students. At this time, I'll be happy to take any questions that you have about math.
Board members, are there any comments, concerns, or questions? The floor is open. Mrs. Flores?
Thank you. Dr. Saavedra or Ms. Castro or Ms. Shields, either one. On this map, were the teachers all trained at the beginning of the year on how to implement this with students?
So on the administration of the test, you have proctors. And so in the elementary classrooms, in elementary, we trained the proctors on how to administer the test because it was done in computer labs. And then, yes, they were being trained on how and have been trained on how to read the reports so that they know how to look at, you know, look at the reports and then know which students need which interventions or extensions.
Okay, so it's done on the computer lab, it's not done in the classroom in their, with you know, computers in the classroom?
So in elementary, it was done in computer labs. In middle school, they were done on the Chromebooks, but in a setting, in a testing setting.
In a testing setting,
Yes.
in their math, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so back to your, what is it? Your chart, your projections,
Yes, ma'am.
or it says performance projections for the STAR. What really jumped out at me, to me, was the jump between 5th and 6th. Is it because there's new skills that are introduced in the 6th grade that perhaps our students are not proficient enough in the 5th grade moving forward? Can y'all pinpoint that right now as to what may be the reason for such a drop?
Yes, ma'am. In 6th grade, and it's always been this way, it was this way before the TEKS changed, and it continues to be this way. The percentage of TEKS that students are learning in math in 6th grade that are new is significantly higher than 5th grade. In 5th grade, there's a few new things, but kind of everything that builds from elementary kind of comes together in 5th grade, with just a few new things. And then in 6th grade, there is just such a high percentage of brand new things that they're learning that is it's challenging in 6th grade. It's higher than 7th grade, 8th grade. It's higher than any other grade level K through 8.
So does the district have any strategies as to how to get our students at the end of 5th grade become a little bit more, say, have their solid math skills to be able to grasp these skills in the 6th grade who are a lot more rigorous and challenging for them?
Well, I definitely think that the specific data that they're getting from this will show even where our highest kids' gaps are, so that they could move from needs to masters or, you know, did not meet to approaches. It really pinpoints specifically what each student needs, no matter what level they're performing at. And we've never had that with math prior to this.
So with the gap coming in from May to August, where students are not in school for a couple of months in the summer. Do they regress as well, or is there plans to zero in on these skills over the summer?
So I do think always there is a slight regression when kids are not in school, but I think always we know at the beginning, we need to make sure and connect. It takes them a minute to get back up to speed when they've been off for a couple of months. So I think each grade level takes some time to make sure we're connecting to the previous grade level teams and then moving forward into that grade level.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments or concerns? Mrs. Fowler?
I just have a question. I'm glad that we've got the statistics because it really gives us a pretty clear picture of where we're at. I would like to see, to include ninth grade, to show if we're having that issue with the 5th to 6th grade, what are we doing 8th to 9th? Because we know kids that go from 8 to 9, that's where you're going to get your dropouts. So I'd like to see a comparison between 8th and 9th grade to see how they're doing.
Yeah, we can provide that to you.
Mr. Clark?
Okay, a couple of questions, I'll try to be brief. So on the page 14, where it says low, average, average, high, average, and high, you said the students are able to see that and where they fall within that range when they take the test?
The teachers receive, are you talking about this graphic right here?
Yes.
This is on the class report that the teacher sees.
But can the child get and know where kind of he's at in
There
this?
are student reports that's where when the teacher sits down to meet with the student, but probably more specifically what the teacher does is he talks about the 4 areas because it also classifies each student one of these in each area. So students have areas of strength and then they have areas of focus.
Okay.
So it's important, this might not really mean a lot to a student just as an overall score, but I think if they really talk to them about, this is your strength and then this is something that we're going to work on, then that would have more meaning to the student.
Right, and how they can improve on it. So I guess the end result is that we reach a higher level with that particular student, right? So, okay. Is this a good test time in your opinion? Because you kind of went over that it's early in the year. I don't know if it's early right now, but is this a good time to get a baseline score like this, or should it be sooner?
Yeah, we were late getting started this year for several reasons, but really you would do like a beginning of the year in September, and then you would do January, and then you would do May. And
So that the adjustments come sooner and not you're already going into January and kind of barely figuring out where everything's at.
Right.
So September's a better
Yes, sir.
Going for next year, right? And since this was our first year administering it, working with the vendor, getting it, it just hit some glitches. But we've never had this kind of specific diagnostic for math. It shows where, if a student, like Ms. Shields stated, they might be level on this SE, but another SE, they're ready to go to the next grade level. So it's very targeted. It takes the guesswork out for the teacher of what interventions they need to do. I've been very impressed with this instrument. So next year, yes, we're going to be expecting to do it probably, September, October.
Now that we've got the hang of it.
Now that we have it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And so this leads to my last question. The goal that we're trying to reach, is that a realistic goal with this kind of data? And now that we have a goal and we're actually tracking where we're at and know where we need to be and what strategies to use for children, are we going to be able to attain this goal?
I'll know more. I think we'll know more once we see the growth at the end of the year, and I think at the end of the year, and I know we've discussed that end of the year, to see, is it reasonable for us to hit that 40% by year 5? So I think we've been better equipped to answer that once we go through the whole process of the beginning, middle, and end of the year.
And get kind of a 1 year under our belt.
Right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Guerra?
Okay, so according to you, you do feel confident that this will be getting better. If this is doable, we can go forward with this. Do you feel good about it?
Yeah, I feel good about this instrument. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so I have a few questions. I'm glad that we now have this tool. So when was this implemented? No, I know, what month? Because I mean, we're looking at September for next year, so when did it actually happen?
So the soonest with everything that we had to go through to get everything with technology and all the things set up was November. Yes. We had some significant hurdles in different ways, so.
Okay. So piggybacking off of Mr. Ibarra's question, I don't want to know at the end of the year if we inched our goal, if we're closer to our goal. I'd like to have a graph. I know this is the base point, but midterm, or the mid-exams, that will give us a more clear picture if growth was done between now and, I think you said February was the date? March? It should be February, which should be January.
Well, what
But
we
we're
need
going to be behind 2 months?
No, not necessarily. There's also the question of over-testing too, because we have students that are already at each school doing their own common, within each grade level doing common assessments. We're doing final exams this week. When we come back, we actually do a benchmark, like an actual simulation of the STAR in February. So what we discussed with principals, we have iStation, we have this as well. When would be a good, a good spot to hit it, because we want all kids to take it seriously, but we also want to take it, consider the child as well with all of these assessments. So that's why we're feeling this out for this year, if you will, because even if we do this in March, we get the data back immediately. It's not something we have to go and edgy for or anything. We get it back immediately. And what's great about this instrument is not only do we get it back, we get it back exactly where, is it a STAR predictor? Like how close are they? Where are they right now? So even if we got this done in March, we still have a significant time before they test in May, where we can still do interventions and still respond and see if kids, are moving forward, and then keep moving them forward. If for any reason a student just stays stagnant, then, have more targeted interventions for those children.
Okay, so you brought up another question. So if students are already getting common assessments, depending on their grade, depending if they're going to be taking STAR, couldn't we use that data?
We could.
Instead of
this is more
over testing?
And we might decide that at the end of the next year. We might, after this year, we might no longer need the STAR benchmark that we do. It costs a lot of money, not a lot of money, but a lot of the printing and things like that. If this is already giving us a predictor, we could remove that for next year. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So we're it's just like anything. It's we're trying this out. This is our first year doing it. We've never done it before. Other districts that have done this, kind of are still like, well, hey, we felt like October was the better month than September. So I've been in contact with San Antonio ISD. They have used this. They used this district-wide last year for the first time. And so they still, we're all trying to figure this out and what is best, because, and I think what might come forward is we might remove, if we have these two instruments, iStation and MAP, then that may take away what we provide from the district and what we do locally as well, so.
Good. Mm-hmm. Good. My next question that I'd like, or concern, is this is district-wide.
Yes.
I would like campus-wide.
Okay.
To be more specific.
Okay.
And to see growth, campus, just to be reported on, I guess.
Yes.
Because it's one of our goals.
Yep.
Okay, that was it. Another round, Mrs. Flores?
I think maybe just for some clarification purposes as well, it's a new tool. You've got a late start on it, but it's a base. By next year, a year from now, then we would have had a year under our belt, still trying to get the kinks out. But we're looking at a 5-year plan. So with this tool working for us for 5 years, we should know more if our goal is going to get reached once we look at year 1 to year 2. At the end, because you got to give it the whole year. One test the middle of the year test and then the end of the year test, compared to the next year, the first test, the middle of the year test, and the end of the year test. Then we're saying, okay, are we making the gains or not? Are we gonna have to adjust or not? But right now, from one testing cycle to another, it's only gonna show us how, how the kids, because they're still learning a lot of new skills, okay? It's not what they should have learned throughout the year. So I think from year 1 to year 2, we'll know more.
There, another round? Okay, I think we're done. Okay, so number 2, report on Board of Trustees continuing education credits for 2017. Dr. Saavedra?
Just again, members of the board, I just want to call to your attention, we put at your place a replacement agenda item. We received some information this afternoon that 4 of y'all had some additional hours, and so we made the adjustment. And anyway, so this is the report that we have.
So legal, I need to report on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, for the 2017 credits, Angelina Orthagin received 51 total hours. 2 hours is for Tier 1, 3 hours for Tier 2, 46 hours for Tier 3. Louis Ibarra Jr., 37.50 total hours, 5 hours for Tier 1, 3 hours for Tier 2, 29.5 for Tier 3. Leticia Guerra, 38.5 total hours, 3.5 for Tier 1, 3 for Tier 2, and 32 for Tier 3. Connie Prado, 22.5 total hours, 3.5 for Tier 1, 3 for Tier 2, and 16 for Tier 3. Elda Flores, 35.5 total hours, 2 for Tier 1, 3 for Tier 2, and 30.5 for Tier 3. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns, board members?
Yes, Madam Chair. For the record, we each got the requirement. You might want to read what the requirements for new board members and for senior board members.
Okay, so the requirement for a first-year board member, Tier 1, is to receive at least 3 hours in the local district orientation, which is required within 60 days of election or appointment. 3 hours required within 120 days of election or appointment for the orientation to the Texas Education Code, and then not required for the update to the Texas Education Code. For an experienced board member, not required is for the local district orientation, orientation to the Texas Education Code, and after the legislative session, the length determined by issues addressed in legislation is required under Tier 1. For Tier 2, first year and experienced board members must have at least 3 hours for team building session, which must include a review of the roles, rights, and responsibilities of the local board as outlined in the framework for governance leadership, and an assessment of continuing education needs of the board superintendent team. For Tier 3, a first-year board member must have at least 10 hours on the continuing education based on assessed needs. For an experienced board member, it must be at least 5 hours. And then continuing education required of all elected public officials effective January 1st, 2006. And it only applies to a first-year board member, is to have 1 hour, which is required within 90 days of election, for the open meetings training. And then the other one is to check the local district policy for any board requirement for the Public Information Act training. And that's it. Are there any comments or concerns other than Mrs. Bowe? Okay, so we're done with that section. Now we're on to consent. Policy BE local states that the consent agenda shall include items of a routine and a recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion, unless the board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote. So there are 12 discussion items. I am like to pull item number 6, number 11, and number 12. Are there any other board members wanting to pull consent items?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item number 5, 9, and 10.
5, 9, and 10. Are there any other consent items to be pulled?
Do you need to go over one?
Scratch.
Yes, Madam President, Dr. Savetta, members of the board, it looks like number 1 is an action item. The way that it's worded for consent would need to be in a yes/no format. I would recommend at this time that we do pull that one for official action.
Okay, number 1 will be pulled. Are there any other items to be pulled, board members? Okay, just to make sure I have this correct, I have number 1, number 5, number 6, number 9, 10, 11, and 12 to be pulled. Okay, so do I hear a motion for number 2, 3, 4, 7, 8? Do I hear a motion for those items?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Prado. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so number 1 was pulled by legal. What should be the wording for a motion on that, legal?
Yes, Madam President, it'd be a motion to grant the authority of superintendent in regard to current litigation as discussed in executive session.
Okay, I so move that motion. Do I hear a second? Okay, a motion has been made by Mrs. Osterheen, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. The next one is consent item number 5, Mrs. Prado.
Thank you. Item number 5 for the public viewing is the item having to do with the health insurance consultant Hub International for the contract year January 1, 2018 to December 31, 2018, not to exceed $48,000. We just heard a speaker on the citizens we heard with concerns about the cost and the products that are going to be I shouldn't say given, because nothing is given, that the employees are going to have to pay for, and with the cost going up. We have an insurance committee, and it's my opinion, of course it's up to the board, Hub, and I don't think he's here. Is he, Dr. Savetta?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so. I would like to have Hub here at our meetings, especially when their contract is coming up, so that we can ask questions of him. We've heard their concerns already, but they're not here to answer any of our questions. Maybe they can tell us why the cost is going up so much, or why the vendors are charging more, and maybe he has an answer. But with him not being here, there's no answer. But I think it's important that the insurance committee would be a vital part of this recommendation. It's my understanding, and Dr. Savetta did respond to me, I had asked him if this had gone to the committee before coming to us, and he said no. So that's the purpose for the insurance committee. It's comprised of employees, and they should be briefed before they come to us with a recommendation as well. So I think, I don't know what the timeline is, Dr. Savetta, on the insurance. If there's time, I'd like to see Hub come to our meeting and answer questions. You know, why are our products, why is the cost going up so much? And then the issues that we're having that we just heard from some of the employees.
The contract with Hub, being consultants on insurance, is from January 1 to December 31st. I think your question is, can it be delayed maybe a month and bring it back next month? The answer is probably yes, you know, like that they're consultants.
Yes.
I can't imagine that the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks in January, you would necessarily need any advice from them.
Because I don't think, and maybe Mr. Zamora, I don't know if he's familiar, would know when do they actually start going out for bids. It's not usually done until like May or June, I think. So, can somebody answer that?
So generally, we try to get into negotiations for renewal in the earlier part of the year after we have several months of utilization. You can't go too early, especially with a brand new vendor, because they want experience rates. In this case, we may have to wait later. Based on our utilization last year, before we went out for bid, we were below 90%, if memory serves. And the renewal with Aetna at that time came in at, I want to say, 23%. And so this was based on our utilization of below 90. That's what prompted us to go out for bid, because that was not an acceptable rate. Even with the bids we received, this was the best proposal on the table for us. But we definitely can bring this back next month for discussion.
Well, that's my opinion. I don't know what.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we table this item for the January regular board meeting with Hub International here to answer questions.
Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been made by Mrs. Prado, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, consent item number 6. Dr. Saavedra, this is in reference to the redesign and district strategic plan.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, on this item, I would like to pull the item. It was listed on the agenda specifically for this, because we anticipated that the proposals might come in over 25,000. The best proposal and the recommended proposal came in under 25,000. It will not require approval from the board.
Okay.
So no action required on number 6.
So consent item number 6 has been pulled. We are now on consent item number 9. Mrs. Prado?
Thank you. On item number 9, in particular, if you're looking at the update that's back up, particularly BAA legal, this kind of caught my eye because Ms. Guerra and I attended the winter conference, the legal winter conference this year, and in one of the sessions, the attorney was updating us on the different laws that have been passed by the state legislature and signed by the governor. And this one was pointed out to us and recommended that we take a look at this particular one. So the Texas legislature has an online site where you can request to see what laws have been approved and signed by the governor. And I did look up the SB 1566, and it discusses the powers and duties of a school board member. I found it very, very interesting. I did print it out myself because I wanted to read it in detail, but I would recommend, and I have it printed, let's copy. I would recommend that each one of us take a look at that and read it because it does impact us and what our responsibilities are as a board member. That's all I have.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Is there anyone else? Mention, comment? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay. We have a microphone on it. Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve number 9. Board policy update.
Do I hear a second? Second. Okay. Motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Mrs. Prado, number 10.
Okay, thank you. I just have a question on I've seen the lease and I didn't see anything in there. I've had a lot of, since Athens is in my district, I've seen a lot of activity at the elementary school, a lot of cars, and I think it's the Bexar County Sheriff Department that's using Athens. Someone's using Athens. There's a lot of cars parked out there, and the community has been calling me and saying, what's going on? Why are they using Athens? Has a decision been made? And my answer is I don't know. But we see them all the time.
It was requested as a rental for some training, but it's just a rental
Okay,
for
so
a
it's
short
not,
period of time.
it's not part of their lease, is it?
No, it is not. It has nothing to do with this.
Is it, I'm concerned because Olivares is a big facility. Is that not big enough for them?
Well, it's for specific training, so they're moving in and out of the classrooms for, I guess it's like active shooting kind of stuff. So if there was a request, we have our rental processes, procedures in place, and we went through it, and so we didn't see any need to to decline it.
Okay, so I think it'd be good to let the board know, what facilities are being used. We get a lot of questions, the community see everything. And I had a lot of parents calling me and say, are we going back to Athens? All these cars are there. But when they saw it roped off, it was like, what happened? So, and of course, I don't know, but it'd be nice to know, Dr. Savetta, when the facilities are being used, and like the same with Payson, in case they decide to use it for something,
Sure.
in case the community asks questions, we'll know what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have.
Mrs. Guerra?
Okay, so we closed, the majority voted to close Athens because there was too much money, it wasn't, I guess, profitable, too much money wasted, but it never shut down, the electricity's still on, air conditioning is still on.
Hold on, Mrs. Guerra, does this pertain to the
Well,
discussion
they're
item?
charging, it's being rented for $1?
No, the Olivares. Yes, this is in reference to the
So
Olivares.
this is a different rental?
Yeah.
A different agreement?
No, so
It's under,
the rental for Athens was a short-term rental, I think, for a few days. This is a long-term lease of our property that they have been using for at least 2 years or so. So it's two different items.
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if no one else has a second round, I have another question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Is this the rental, what are we charging them to rent this facility?
It's a $1 agreement.
A $1 agreement to rent
So basically, the original lease was that they would pay rent, then we had to maintain the facility. This facility is a very old facility and has a lot of needs. The district also was having to maintain it with manpower, so we were sending our staff to go work on this facility, which pulled them away from our own facilities that needed attention. So the district and Bear County agreed that as long as they maintained all aspects of the property, any roof damage, any HVAC repair, replacement that was required, that we would rent it to them for $1.
I'm sorry, Mr. Samara, maybe it wasn't clear. My question was the rental, what are we charging them to rent Athens?
That I don't have that in front of me. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to discuss that.
Okay. I did read the agreement. I think it's a good agreement because now we're giving them the responsibility to take care of the facilities, including the AC and everything. I think that should have been done from the very beginning, and we didn't. So I think it's a good agreement with the county. I move for approval.
Okay, a motion has been made to approve item number 10. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Prado, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. I'm sorry, my vote was an aye. Motion carries. All right, item number 11. That is me, but before we do 11, I'd like to go to item number 12.
Okay.
So in item number 12, board members, I pulled this only because if you reviewed your documents, we did not go over number 1 as a group, but I did feel that it needed to be in this procedure, and that was in blue on item 1.1, indicating that these board operating procedures will be reviewed and amended as appropriate on an annual basis. After the annual review and amendments, individual board members will be asked to sign and date the amended board operating procedures. So that was just something we didn't discuss in our workshop, but I wanted to make y'all aware that that was in there. Are there any other comments or concerns? Okay, make a motion to pass consent item number 12. Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been made by Mrs. Osterguin, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so now we're on consent item number 11, which is the process for appointment of trustees for District 3 and District 6. So on your desk, board members, are some documents. These are drafts. These are samples that Ben has drafted for us. One of them is the one that says draft only on the front, is the application for those who are wishing to apply for those 2 vacant seats. The beginning is pretty much their name, if they have any titles, occupations, their phone number, emails, if they've been convicted of a crime, or if they've ever sued or filed a civil claim on the district or any of its employees. And then it goes through 9 questions. What are your feelings on this document? The floor is open. First, Mrs. Flores, and then it'll be Mr. Ibarra.
The candidates will be asked to fill out this application and answer the questions at the same time?
Yes.
So there'll be this whole thing.
Well, this is a draft, so if we agree, then yes. If you have something against it or feel other,
No. I wasn't sure if these were the questions that were going to be asked or.
it's a sample, so if you want to maybe suggest different questions, you can do that right now.
I just wasn't sure how.
Yeah, so this is the application, this is the sample application. So I felt if someone was to apply for a position, that they would probably have to answer some questions. Okay, so what I'm envisioning as board president is when someone applies for a vacant seat, I'm anticipating a lot of applications. I'm just going to give a ballpark number, let's say 100 applicants apply. I do not wish to interview 100 applicants. So based on the answers that are given on this application will be determined for an interview process. And so maybe 10% of the applicants that are brought in would get selected for an interview process. That's my explanation of what should go on, but the floor is open for any comments or suggestions.
I just wasn't sure if with this application and 9 questions, if that may discourage some candidates from saying, oh, that's just a bit too much. I was just wondering if maybe some of these questions may be part of the interview process.
Okay.
If we decide to, once we vetted the applicants, then some of these questions would be part of the interview process.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
Say half of them or, something like that. That's just my thought.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Ibarra?
Okay, so I'm along the same lines of thinking here. So what I'm thinking an application should be is all the general stuff. Possibly obviously the background check and all that kind of stuff. And then the interview portion would be the more of these in-depth questions. And then the second round could be something based off of the first round's answers or something like that.
Okay. So based on the document, so basically just before the questions begin, is that all you would like for the applicants to fill out?
Actually, I'm sorry.
Probably number 5 can go on the application, and number 4. And other than that, I would think that the rest could be interview questions. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Mrs. Flores will come back to you.
Okay.
Anyone on this side have any? Mrs. Guerra, and then I think I see Mrs. Prado's hand. Go ahead.
Okay, so these questions will go in the application packet when they come and pick it up, like we did at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll have time to think about all these and answer them, better answer them. They won't be just
Okay.
handed to them.
Great. I kind of jumped ahead of myself. On your other document that is stapled that says draft not for release, your cover page has a timeline. So in that timeline, it says December 21st would begin the accepting applications of interested people. Application to include a letter stating why the individual is interested, a resume, and signed notarized statement as to legal qualifications to hold office, residency, registered to vote, etc. January 16th is the application deadline. All applicants must be turned in by 5 p.m. All applications must be turned in by 5 p.m. No late or incomplete applications past this date will be accepted. January 17th, which is our board meeting, board reviews list of applicants and decides who to interview for both positions. February 2nd, board interview of potential applicants. And then February 7th, board selection of individuals to fill vacancies. Again, this is not a set in stone timeline. It is up for discussion. I just wanted to set some dates to see what you thought of them. But, and we'll go around, but since I already have you on the floor, Mrs. Guerra, what is your opinion of the application and the questions and the timeline?
No, I'm fine with both. I was just wondering. And I have another question on the background check. That's where we'll find out, like, for example, what jobs they've had. They don't have to, we're not going to ask that question?
On the background check, it's only for criminal charges.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. I'm fine with both.
Okay, so Mr. Ibarra presented the application only having question number 4 and number 5. Are you okay with that, or were you okay with all 9 questions?
I like all the questions. I think they should.
He did state that he'd like the rest to be in an interview questions.
That's fine.
Which way? The way Mr. Ibarra has stated?
The only 4 and 5?
Yes, 4 and 5 to be on the application, and then the rest to be interview
Yeah,
questions.
they're short. They could be, I don't think it would take too long for them to answer.
Okay, and you're okay with the timeline as presented?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Prado?
I want to, I agree with Mr. Ibarra. I think those 2 questions are appropriate for the application process, and I'd like to see those on there. And the others could be asked at the time of the interview. I don't agree that we should limit how many people get interviewed. If a person takes the time to fill out all the paperwork and apply, and then don't even get the courtesy of an interview, I think that's wrong. They make the effort to do that, everyone. I seriously doubt if we're going to get 100 applicants, and I know you were just throwing out numbers out there, but I think everyone who takes the time is because they're interested and want to be considered should have an interview. I mean, if we have to have it in a 2-day process, we can do that, but I think everyone should have that opportunity. And on this one here that the attorneys gave us on the first one, where it says, begin on December 21st, begin accepting applications of interested people. Application to include letters stating why the individual is interested. I think that's good. A resume, if they have a resume. Not everybody has a resume. So maybe there should be something there that says, if available, or something. You know, they're not going to run out and make a resume, because they have to turn this application in. And it says sign notarized statement as to legal qualifications to hold office. Well, they're going to go out and get a notarized statement, and they don't even know if they're going to be interviewed or selected.
The notary can be done here, the district would provide that. It's the same as if you were running for a regular election. When you apply, there's I think it's the oath that's taken,
right.
And so it has to be notarized, and so the district would provide notary. Is that correct, Dr. Saavedra?
Correct.
But it's not something that's notarized statement doesn't have to be included in the application.
Well, the notarized statement is just stating that the individual is aware that they are a registered voter, they have no criminal background, and that they have lived in their district, lived in that particular district for the amount of time that's needed to run for an office. So that's what the notary is that what they're stating in their application is true and correct.
So maybe we ought to say that notary services will be provided at central office or something like that. So that they're not saying, where am I going to get a notary, I don't have time. They can do it when they come and turn in the application.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so back to this group. Before we go, let me give some input on what Mr. Ibarra suggested. I'm in agreement with removing the questions and only leaving number 4 and 5 in the application. Dr. Saavedra, on this application as well, if we can put the language for the notary, so that it be on the same document. And the only thing I'm adding to Mrs. Prado, just in case we do have a lot of applicants, and as a board, if we feel that we need to interview all applicants, then I want to possibly hold special call meetings in addition to the 2 in February we normally already have. Just in case if we get a lot of applicants.
Let me also let the board know that there's a high likelihood that we will need a special call meeting toward the end of January for the adoption of the audit. Right now, we anticipate it's going to go all the way down to the end of January, right before the deadline. So just for information, you might use that meeting as well for interviews and so forth.
Okay. All right, so now back to Mr. Ibarra on the timeline.
All right. I think that, I mean, I'm fine with the timeline. Here's my question is that if we can, and I'm just trying to figure out real quick on the dates. If we can hold a couple of these meetings on a regular schedule instead of the special call meeting.
Okay, so the only, answering your question, so the only regular scheduled meetings in January is the 17th, and then in February it is
February 7th.
It's a special call meeting.
Yes,
The first
special
one.
call meeting.
So the regular meeting is the 21st, correct?
That's correct.
February 21st is the regular call meeting.
Yeah, but, yeah, okay. January 17th is a regular scheduled board meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So then I guess my suggestion would be that on the February 7th meeting, the board selection of individuals to fill vacancies, that we open that meeting up to citizens to be heard on that day.
Legal, how does that work if special call meetings do not allow citizens to be heard?
Yes, Madam President, at a special call meeting, it's the board's prerogative as to whether or not they'd like to have public opinion as part of the agenda. Therefore, you may or may not have it at the board's discretion.
Okay. So, could we take a vote on that, or it would have to be included in the motion?
I'd recommend including that in the motion, and that can be amended or adjusted as seen fit by the rest of the board.
What do you mean, in what motion?
Well, there has to be a motion that includes everything we're discussing.
Okay. So is there any, well,
We'll go back.
that's my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, so those two things, I guess if the 17th is one regular scheduled meeting, and that's fine, we're kind of already going to the interview portion, and then in February, we're already kind of at the deciding portion. So my suggestion would be on February 7th, just to add citizens to be heard to that meeting, and that's it. And on the application, I think I'm good with everything we said, except I think you can, if we wanted to, you could list the 5 interview, so, wait, 9. So we're taking out 2 questions and making them part of the application. The other 7, we can list those and have the applicants prepared for the interview. If you want, if you want to have the people kind of not be surprised by the questions the board's going to ask, then we tell them, okay, possible questions for an interview, and you list those 7 questions, and then maybe we don't even ask 7, and we ask 5 of those 7, whatever, kind of just, different for different, kind of change it up, and it's not just kind of like a cookie cutter. I mean, that's just my suggestion, but we do give them like all 7 questions ahead of time, they have time to prepare their answers.
Okay. Mrs. Flores?
Yes, I'm in agreement with the timeline. And I also wanted to add and agree with Mr. Ibarra that when we are going to make the selection on February the 7th, that we should open it also to hear citizens to be heard. I think that gives us, as a board, more transparency because we're listening to citizens. I know the board makes the decision because we are appointing, but at least, we give them the option to we have the option to hear citizens. And I do agree with the application. The first part, I agree with items, or question number 4 and 5 to be part of the application that they have to fill in. And I do also agree that the rest of the questions ought to be given to them so they can prepare.
Okay. Sure, Dr. Smith.
Let me make a suggestion to the board. I think the idea of publicizing the questions so people come prepared is good, but I also think you need to reserve some questions. If you really want to know how that individual can express themselves or how that individual feels about certain things, you want to know it's really them as opposed to somebody else prepared it for them. And here it is, I'm ready to read it when you interview me. I mean, when you interview for a superintendent, you don't give them the questions ahead of time. This is in an equally important position where you're going to be selecting people. You want to know that this is really them and not something that somebody else has prepared for them. So my suggestion to the board is to limit the number of questions that you release ahead of time and have some that you don't release.
I'm okay with that.
Do we make a decision as to which ones?
Oh, hold on. Okay, so we're back on this side. So the question posed was making a special call meeting on February 7th, a public, for citizens to be heard. So what is your comments on that? And as we go back on this side, there is a fact sheet that was attached to the timeline. And it's just questions and answers that someone may have as they apply. Do you feel that it should be with the timeline? Okay, wait. So do you feel that it should be on the website for the candidates to see? Also with that, anyone who applies for the position, I am recommending that, or my suggestion is that all applicants be named on the website. All the applicants that we receive, that their information, whatever can be released, I think everything can be released on the website, so that way the public knows who is applying for what position, for what district. So that's my say. So Mrs. Guerra, what do you say to that?
Okay, with the questions, did you need to send the questions, the frequently asked questions in the packet or put it on the website or both?
However you want. What is your opinion?
No, I think in the packet and on the website would be good. And especially, I do agree with the names on the website of anybody applying for it, just for the sake of transparency. So I'm good.
So do you want the names only, or do you want the names in the completed application that they submitted?
For me, it'd be whatever, the whole application. So the application states their information, plus the 2 questions. So whatever they respond with. That's me. Mrs. Guerra?
I was fine with just the names, but that would be good.
Mrs. Prado?
I think I agree with Mr. Ibarra, as I said earlier, to include those 2 questions in the application, and the remainder will be the questions for them that will be included in their packet. I'm assuming those will be attached to whatever other information they may have. Another thing maybe you might want to include in their packet is a map of their district. Because they may think they live in their district, but then they won't know until they see the map, to make sure. So that's good to have. And as far as on the website, I think transparency is good. I think the name is good. I don't think Because are you saying to post the completed application on the website? I don't know if that's a good idea. I'd rather just see their name.
When you run for an elected seat, your address, everything gets posted, am I correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct. It's quite literally a
On the application, once you file, when you
Yes.
file for something. I
Yeah, so
think
they're
talking about
applying to be a
applicants.
public office seat, so.
Right.
It's getting it ready to what's ahead.
That's just my personal opinion. I think just the name, but if that's what the board chooses, so be it. What was the other question? I think that was it.
Do you
Oh,
feel
the
that
citizens to be heard, I think that's important, that we have any opportunity when we're going to discuss these vacancies, there should be citizens to be heard. If we have a special call meeting for whatever reason, we should have special citizens to be heard as well.
And then the question and answers fact sheet to be on both the website and the application, you're okay with that?
Yeah, I think the fact sheet on the website for people that are considering running, they see those questions and they'll think, well, maybe I can qualify. So I think that's a good idea, put that on the website as well.
And then what is your opinion of the remaining, 7 questions?
I think I said, put those as a part of the application process, so they have those questions.
Okay. So back to this side, the fact sheet and the question that was posed as to allowing the other 7 questions to be in the packet so that the person becomes prepared, or to not post those questions, and to release their name and the full application on the website that their intent of applying. Mr. Butler?
I'm okay with everything being on the website.
Okay.
What was the other question?
The fact sheet, you're okay with that being on the website, and then the application, and then the 7 questions remaining to be in the application?
I'm okay with limiting the questions.
Omitting?
Limiting. How many we give them ahead of time to study, like Dr. Savella said.
Okay, so
I'm okay with giving them a sample of a few questions that may be asked.
Okay, so, see, here's the thing. As a board, we have to discuss which questions to interview.
No.
So it's public knowledge already, because if they're in this meeting, they're hearing it. Or they go back and watch the video, they get to hear the questions, or they,
We're gonna read them out right now? Oh, really?
Has to be made in the motion.
There you go. They got time to study. I mean, so we cannot, and what you're saying is we cannot ask other questions then that day.
I don't know if I can say, I don't know if this is even allowed, legal, if you can advise me. I was gonna allow the board members to come in with 1 question.
Yes, Madam Chair, that was going to be my suggestion. If the board has questions they would like to ask and not have them be public beforehand, the board can agree to something along the lines of each board member gets 3 questions of their choice as long as they're consistent across candidates. Or some sort of guidelines like that that allow you to ask questions of your choice, not disclosing publicly, but it is fair because it's the same candidates get the same questions and the same board member. And I even recommend in the same order.
So we would still adopt something like this with questions and then bring them out?
Yes, sir. What I would, just to give you a heads up on how I would handle this, I'd say something along the lines of motion to adopt appointment process as presented by council with the changes of, and we'd go down what we've been discussing. One of those which would be, and each board member gets 3 questions consistent across applicants to ask other reference.
I'm all for that.
Okay. Mrs. Flood?
I agree with posting, putting everything on the website, including all the questions. And I agree with what council is proposing, that we each come in with 2 or 3 questions on our own that we're going to be asking the same of all candidates, each.
Okay. So those are all that I have. Are there any other things that you feel I may have missed or that you'd like to input, see implemented? Dr. Saavedra?
Another suggestion I have also is, in whatever motion you make, whatever you approve tonight, that you give yourself some flexibility concerning these dates. You know, not tie your hands to these specific dates. If we have a need for a special call meeting, you might be able to conduct some of this business, so that trying to reduce the number of meetings you have to come into.
Okay.
I just,
Mrs. Brown?
on the questions, after reading thoroughly all of them, I think they're all good questions. On number 3, because it's asking them about things that we just started the process ourselves with, that they probably have no idea and not familiar with this. So I'm thinking maybe not do number 3, and we'll do it as a second interview, and then hit them with this. But the other ones are pretty basic, easy questions. And then if you pick a finalist, then you hit them with the harder questions. So, and this is my opinion.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, so do I hear a motion?
Can we get a summary of what we just talked about?
Okay, just for clarification, the application will include number 4 and number 5 as you requested. That's my understanding, correct?
Well, nothing's decided yet. The motion that is being made has to include that.
Okay, so that's
You've heard, everyone has heard everyone's opinions and suggestions, and so you can pick and choose what you like from the motion, or you can, it's open.
And the other questions, if I may, is everything else that's here with the exception of number 3. That will come later.
So do I hear a motion?
Okay, I guess I'll make a motion. Okay, I make a motion that we approve the draft application to include number 4 and number 5 as an application process, and numbers 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9 will be separate in a packet of questions for the candidates to answer.
The timeline,
Oh, I think the timeline is fine.
it has to be in the motion.
Okay, and I also move that we approve the recommended timeline as presented.
And then you also have to approve, in the motion to state it on the website.
Okay, one other thing included in the motion, and that any meetings being held regarding the candidates or interview process, that there will be citizens to be heard.
Trustee Brown, sorry for interrupting. If you would like, I could give you a rundown of what I think is a summary of what all
Thank you.
So, motion to adopt appointment process as presented by council with the changes of only questions 4 and 5 on the application, citizens to be heard on February 7th, the notary language included in the application, interview questions prepared with some withheld, interview questions posted with some withheld, being the numbers of your choice as presented, post applications and applicants online, question and answer on a website along with fact sheet, and 3 questions per board member consistent across candidates as discussed.
I second.
So a motion has been made by Mrs. Prado, seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Great job. Okay, so now we're on discussion and possible action. Number 1, amend board policy AE local. Dr. Saavedra?
Yes, ma'am. Board policy AE local deals with the district's educational philosophy in reference to vision, theory of action, board constraints with the superintendent as well as the board. The recommended amendments are twofold. One pertains to board's constraints for the superintendent, and the other one pertains to board's constraints for the board. The question I have, or the recommendation I would have on the board's constraints for the superintendent, the language that's in the policy on the third bullet in that section reads, the superintendent shall not propose a change of use for a functioning campus unless the board has adopted a long-term facilities plan that is developed by a structured process for gathering and incorporating the community's values and ideas. Either that needs some interpretation, or I guess the recommended amendment is that the superintendent shall not recommend major program changes or initiatives without first soliciting the input from the community. I don't know if the proposed amended language meets the intent of what was the original language, and if it doesn't, I guess I need some clarification.
Board members, the floor is open for comments, questions, or suggestions. Mr. Ibarra?
So the purpose of that specific item in that motion, because I made this motion, was that we wouldn't suggest a change of use, basically a consolidation, a closing, or a change of use for any school. And I think the way it's read there kind of incorporates any consolidation, closing, change of use, without basically having some community meetings, almost like what we're doing right now with the academies, getting community's input, and then coming back and figuring out what the plan is after that on something major like a consolidation, a school closure, or a change of use. So I understand that we need to have a baseline and a way to measure this. So if we need to come up with something along those lines, but I'd like to leave in there a change of use for a campus. Because I feel like we need to make sure that we include community input the next time we consolidate, change of use, or close a school.
Does the blue language meet that?
I don't think it does, because it just says major program change. So that could, I mean,
Wouldn't closing of a school or consolidation be a major program change?
I mean, I guess it could be.
Or even, for example, you gave the example of the academies. That's a major program change. I'm not sure
with that.
That the red language would meet the requirement for public input on, for example, the academies. We're doing it, but we're not doing it because of that language. The blue language would require any major program change. Requires the administration, the district to go out and solicit community input. I'm simply trying to clarify it, not trying to get around it or anything, we're just trying to clarify it.
So there's an understanding that a major program change could be a consolidation, a closing, or a change of use of campus?
I would think so. Or we could also, if you want to make it very, very clear, is to actually say that. Actually say before the administration brings any recommendation for a major program change or a consolidation proposal or proposed closure of any school, we need to have community input.
I'm okay with that too.
Okay, would have to be in the motion. Are you done?
Yes.
Mrs. Flores? No, Mrs. Prado.
Yeah, I just, maybe just changing the word. I thought what was proposed by Mr. Ibarra and the red, I understood his intent, but maybe it just needs to cut and paste. Maybe something like the superintendent shall not propose a change of use for a functioning campus unless a facilities plan is developed by a structured process for gathering and incorporating the community's values and ideas to be adopted by the board.
It's the same, just the words.
Well, there's some
Turn
that was
around.
taken out. It was, because he had long-term facilities, that didn't make sense. So it's just strictly facilities, and I'm talking about a long-term facilities plan. It's just facilities plan be developed. And of course, you want to gather input from the community and their ideas.
Is there anyone else before I go second round? Mr. Ibarra?
So for clarification, I think my reason for putting in the long-term facilities plan in the language was to ensure that we wouldn't, down the line, open another school, another middle school a mile away from another middle school the way we had previously, or an elementary school half a mile away from two other elementary schools the way we did previously. But I think some of those items we can create as a board with vision through some of the Lone Star governance framework that we're doing and currently working on. So I don't mind leaving that language out of there because I know that that can be developed and we can work on those things later. So I understand that and I don't mind leaving that portion out right now because I know that we can work towards that goal. So just for clarification, Ms. Brazos, I don't think we need to have that in there. I think the discussions are leading that way already. And we'll be having workshops, I think, in the near future to talk about stuff like that anyway. But we can change the motion, I think, to read more along the lines of.
So let me read this if I may, and I amended it even further. The superintendent shall not recommend major program changes or initiatives, including school consolidations or school closures, without first soliciting the input of the community.
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
The superintendent shall not recommend major program changes or initiatives, including school consolidations or school closures, without first soliciting the input of the community. Basically, superintendent can't come in, recommend a school closure or a consolidation or any other major program change without first going out to the community, basically what it says.
I'm okay with that.
Do we need to put anything in there about board approval at the end there? Because you're recommending, but it's the board that has the approval.
Of course, yeah. This is a constraint on the superintendent.
Right.
Absolutely, the board has the final say so. Yeah.
So do we just take that motion or?
You gotta make a motion. You can say the motion
Can I have your little paper there?
as Dr. Sevilla stated it.
Oh my God, I can't read this. The superintendent, okay.
Want me to read it for you on your behalf? I can read it on your behalf.
Can?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Of course I can. Okay. On Mr. Ibarra's behalf, he moves that this be amended to read, the superintendent shall not recommend major program changes or initiatives, comma, including school consolidations or school closures, without first soliciting the input of the community.
And then you also have to make the motion to approve the board president at his or her discretion may extend the amount.
Okay, and Mr. Ibarra further recommends, you stop me when you don't agree, that the board president at his or her discretion may extend the amount of time that each trustee is allowed to speak, but must ensure that each trustee is allowed an equal amount of time. This gives her some flexibility on the 2-minute rule.
Motion.
Does that accurately reflect your motion, sir?
That does.
Okay, motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded, I need a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, number 2, amend the SSAISD Goal Progress Measures reporting calendar through the 2018-2019 school year. Dr. Saavedra.
Yes, ma'am. This is the calendar for the goal progress measures. Initially, a 12-month calendar was adopted by the board. This amends the calendar to 24 months. It is recommended in the Lone Star Governance Framework that a 24 to 36 month calendar would be best. And that's the primary reason that we recommend that we extend it to 24 months. So we basically have carried forward the timelines for the different reporting periods and made it and spread it over 24 months versus 12 months.
Okay, board members, the floor is open. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns? Or do I hear a motion? Oh, Mr. Ibarra?
So, I guess, talking about goals earlier and the testing and what have you. Do you feel comfortable, Ms. Castro, with this calendar and the dates set forth and the testing, over-testing?
Right, I do at this time, and I do hope that the option would be if we, as we go through this journey and we need to amend a couple of dates, that we could always bring it back to the board where we can amend and be a little flexible, so yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, are there any other comments, questions, or concerns?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The time is 9:11 p.m.